Chapter 71. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At noon, Locke did not leave immediately, but ate at a Mexican fast food restaurant with everyone as usual. David brought up the case that Locke handled in the morning as a topic of conversation, which attracted different expressions from everyone. After hearing this, Randy was stunned for a while before reacting, and excitedly punched Locke. Cool, it makes sense. He said he lost $500. And the wallet with only $200 must not be his. I will do the same in the future. He looked serious, pounded his chest, and said to Locke in a serious tone, Bro, thank you for your fair law enforcement. You are my hero. Hey, Randy, dude, what are you talking about? Bullshit, do you know what you are talking about? As soon as Randy finished speaking, he immediately aroused the dissatisfaction of Superintendent Mona, David, Elsa, and Superintendent Mona's new partner, the white second-level police officer Wei Luan. Randy also realized that he had offended his colleagues by mistake, so he raised his hands and said apologetically, Sorry, guys, it's my fault, please forget what I said, I'll treat you to Old John tonight. Seeing Randy's sincere apology, everyone let him go. Although the whole United States is against racial discrimination, everyone knows that the more you lack something, the more you emphasize it. LAPD's discrimination against blacks is everywhere when enforcing the law. If other white policemen handled this case today, the black girl would either pay 300 yuan to the white man or go to the police station. Because in the absence of physical evidence or witnesses, most white policemen will favor white people. Superintendent Mona turned to look at Locke and reminded him, The reporter will definitely complain about you. David interrupted, This guy doesn't care at all. He said that he has been very high profile recently and needs to cool down. I don't understand what he is thinking. Wei Luan laughed and said, A LAPD that has never been complained about is definitely not a qualified LAPD. Randy raised his fist and bumped it with him, echoing, Yes, this is what every LAPD has to go through. After Wei Luan and Randy bumped fists, he said to Locke, Locke, I didn't expect your shooting skills to be so good. Teach me when you have time. No problem, let's make an appointment to go to the gun range another day. Locke agreed immediately. He had realized the change in the attitude of his colleagues around him. It can't be said to be flattering, but it is obvious that everyone wants to have a good relationship with him. Locke knew the reason very well. As the security employment contract spread within the Wilshire Police Department, his contribution in the kidnapping case was also made public. After his colleague was kidnapped and disappeared, he did not collapse in frustration. With the spirit of not giving up, he quickly found the hiding place of the kidnappers and rescued his colleague. Single-handedly, he killed 5 gunmen, including 4 elite American soldiers. This is such a shocking feat, almost legendary, and it is no exaggeration to say that he is a hero. It's a pity that he was on administrative leave at the time, otherwise, a Medal of Valor would definitely be a problem. In the disciplined forces, people with outstanding abilities are often the most popular, because being with them is not only safe and guaranteed, but also can make meritorious contributions. Randy immediately raised his hand and said, Count me in. Superintendent Mona also smiled and said, I want to see how good your shooting skills are. Elsa threw a wink to Locke, with the intention of renewing their relationship. I also want to practice shooting. Locke, you teach me too. David saw everyone's expressions, and knew what was going on. He smiled and said, I won't join you. I was hit hard by this kid last time. After dinner, Locke asked David to take him back to the police station to pick up the car. He sent the G55 home and then called an Uber to the Mendez repair shop. The Uber was a Tesla Model Y. The driver was an Asian. After Locke got in the car, he looked at the rearview mirror several times, but seeing that Locke kept lowering his head to send messages, he did not chat with him. Locke was chatting with Jennifer Gray on WhatsApp. The woman told Locke that she was doing an extremely difficult operation. This operation required the cooperation of doctors from multiple departments. There were 5 surgeons involved, and the time was expected to be 16 hours. She was taking a break to replenish her energy. She would wash her hands and change into surgical gowns. The operation was expected to end at 9 o'clock tonight. Jennifer Gray asked Locke if he could pick him up at the hospital in the evening so that he wouldn't have to pick her up tomorrow morning. She also asked him if he had any plans for tomorrow. Locke suddenly became Spartan. He seemed to have forgotten to tell Jennifer Grey that he was going to Locke this weekend and couldn't date her. He immediately confessed and tentatively extended an invitation, asking Jennifer Grey if she wanted to go. Don't go to Locke together for the weekend. Jennifer Grey thought for a few seconds and replied, "Sorry, I'm not ready yet. I wish you a happy family gathering. However, if you missed the appointment this week, you will have to double the compensation next week." Locke would naturally not force it. The social boundaries in the United States are very clear. You are you and your family is family. However, in order to compensate Jennifer Grey, Locke replied, "Although we can't date tomorrow, there are still 10 hours tonight. Do you need me to pick you up after your surgery?" Jennifer Grey replied in seconds, "Of course." She replied again, "I'm going to the operating room." Locke exited WhatsApp, his mouth slightly pouted, and began to look forward to the evening. In fact, he also wanted it and had been holding it back for several days. At this time, Locke noticed the action of the driver in front, raised his eyebrows, and was about to ask what was going on when his cell phone rang. Finding that the caller was Catherine Murphy, Locke subconsciously looked around and found that David was not there before answering the call. "Hi, Catherine, what's up?" Catherine Murphy's soft and gentle voice came from the phone. "Locke, I want to inform you about the progress of the case of Elvin Marcus. The forensic department found 6 more female bodies in the house built by Elvin Marcus Construction Company through detection equipment. The Detective Bureau has rejected his application for bail. Next, we will match the identities of the victims as soon as possible." The number of dead rose to 11, plus 2 victims who were still alive after being detained for 2 years, a total of 13 people. The severity of this case immediately rose to a higher level. Locke lost his voice and said, "Fuck. This is definitely the worst criminal case in Los Angeles in recent years." He was also a little curious in his heart. He didn't know what equipment the forensic department used to scan the bodies in the building, but he thought it should not be as powerful as the detection card. Catherine Murphy said calmly, "Elvin Marcus, this demon, will not only be in prison for life, but also lose everything: the family of the victim, the 2 living victims, and the owner of the house where the bodies were hidden will sue him." Locke said coldly, "This is the punishment he deserves. Damn, this pervert is so cheap." Although California has not abolished the death penalty, it has stopped executing the death penalty. Catherine Murphy was silent for a while, and suddenly asked, "Locke, can you tell me how to see ghosts? I have dissected hundreds of corpses, but I have never seen a ghost. If I can see ghosts, I can find ways to help them faster." Locke was stunned for a moment. This request was too fierce. He immediately thought of the ancient Chinese legend. I wonder if cow tears and willow leaves have any effect on Westerners. Chapter 72. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Locke had to spend some time convincing Catherine Murphy that he had no psychic ability and that this incident was just a coincidence. After hanging up the phone, Locke was speechless, which was also the sequelae of lying. Then he thought about whether to call David and inform him of Catherine's abnormal thoughts. However, when he thought that David would definitely react greatly if he knew that Catherine took the initiative to call him, he hesitated again. Forget it, it should be just the delusion of most forensic doctors, who want to communicate with the corpse at the soul level. Putting away his phone, Locke looked at the driver in front and wanted to take the initiative to say hello to him. It can be seen that the other party just wanted to chat with him. Most of the Asians who drive Uber in Los Angeles are Chinese. Unexpectedly, the Chinese driver sat upright, looking at the front with a focused face, and his expression was even a little nervous. Locke was stunned for a moment, remembering that he should have scared the other party with the conversation with Catherine Murphy just now. He shrugged his shoulders. So forget it. Half an hour later, Locke arrived at the Mendez repair shop. As soon as he got out of the car, the Tesla Model Y ran very fast. Because it was an appointment in advance, Sarah Mendez heard the noise and immediately ran down from the office upstairs. She was dressed in the same style as before, with a pink belly-revealing tight t-shirt on the upper body and washed denim hot pants on the lower body, showing her charming and graceful figure and slender straight legs, exuding the breath of youth and enthusiasm. "Hi, Locke." "Hi, Sarah." Looking at the beautiful girl in front of him, Locke's heart was throbbing, and he remembered an old Chinese saying that everyone has a love of beauty. A beautiful woman is simply a work of art, which makes people dazzled and pleasing to the eye, regardless of desire. Especially her smile, which is like the first ray of sunshine in the morning, clean and clear. Obviously, she is not doing well, but she is so optimistic and innocent, which makes people want to protect her and want to protect this smile. Sarah Mendez waved her slender arm at Locke, snapped her fingers, and smiled. Let go, I'll take you to see your car. Victor and Ryder are out and will be back soon. Locke followed Sarah to the repair shop. His F-150 Raptor has been completely renewed. Without those fancy decals, the whole car looks much more stable and restrained. The whole car has been deeply cleaned and polished, and then plated with crystal. The paint looks very bright, almost like new. This is what he wants. Locke immediately thought of Sarah Mendez bending down to wash his car, and praised, "It's very clean, I will give you an extra tip." Sarah Mendez smiled proudly, "This is what I am good at." Then Sarah showed Locke the modified parts one by one. Although Locke also participated in the modification, the finished product and the semi-finished product are different after all. The glass of the car was replaced with bulletproof glass, so the door was also replaced with a custom one, which looks particularly thick. This is the most expensive part of this modification. The air suspension was installed in accordance with Locke's equipment plan. The wheels and tires were also replaced with new ones, which was completely Victor Mendez's plan. The wheels were customized, with a larger wheel diameter, made of high-carbon steel, and smoked black to match the body color. The tires were still BF Goodrich all-terrain, but wide tires were selected to increase comfort. The refrigerator and gun box in the trunk were also installed, and the previously cut parts were installed tightly. Sarah Mendez had already poured some ice cubes into the refrigerator, saying that it was to test the effect of the refrigerator. She shook her slender collarbone and smiled, "I wanted to put a dozen Coronas in for you, but Victor reminded me that if I put beer in now, it would shake violently when driving." Locke was surprised and said, "I didn't expect Victor to be so careful." Sarah Mendez frowned slightly, "You are prejudiced against him." Sorry, my fault. Locke apologized tactfully. Who can blame the deep brother-sister relationship? He opened the gun cabinet. The rails had a strong damping feeling and would not shake. There were fixings on the shelves. Once the Remington M700P was purchased, it could be put directly in. There was also a place to put pistols and bullets next to it. It was simply a mobile gun warehouse. He nodded and said, "Cool. As long as you like it." The folding seat in the back seat has been reserved. It may not arrive until next week at the earliest. After finishing the business, Sarah Mendez looked a little embarrassed. "In fact, you completed the difficult parts by yourself. We just installed them. You helped us last time, so this time we will only charge you the cost of the accessories." Locke frowned slightly. How can this be embarrassing? The reason why he did it himself last time was just to speed up the efficiency, not to save money. In his opinion, the Mendez siblings were already living a miserable life and were not financially relaxed. If he worked for nothing this time, it would go against his original intention. Sarah Mendez said calmly, "It doesn't matter. Edmund has taught us since childhood that we only take the money we deserve." She seemed not to want to talk about this topic anymore, and said excitedly, "Locke, do you want to test drive?" Locke had already thought about how to deal with this. His eyes swept across her graceful curves, and he suddenly thought a little wrong, and nodded, "Of course." 10 minutes later, Locke drove the F-150 Raptor around the neighborhood and returned to the repair shop. Overall, it basically met his expectations, and the comfort was improved a lot, but he was still a little dissatisfied with the power of the engine. 3.5-liter V6, power of 450 horsepower, torque of 691 Nm, still not enough. Two ideas suddenly popped up in Locke's mind: change an engine, for it is not without a V8 engine. For example, the 5.2-liter V8 engine outputs 522 kilowatts and 868 Nm of torque. If he tunes it, the data will be even more powerful, or he can design a turbocharger system himself. Locke prefers the latter. After his car driving has been promoted to L4, he has a deep knowledge reserve of automobile mechanical structure and automobile power system, and he really wants to try it himself. He turned his head to look at Sarah Mendez. who was staring at him in the co-pilot seat. "Sarah, does the repair shop have CNC machine tools?" Sarah Mendez asked almost at the same time. "Locke, can you race?" After looking at each other, the two answered almost at the same time, "Yes, but no one can use it anymore." "Yes," Sarah Mendez's eyes flashed, revealing a look of joy. Just now when Locke was driving, she found that Locke exuded a unique charm when driving the car, which was a sense of harmony between man and car that only drivers have. Just as she was about to ask in detail, she heard the roar of an engine outside the car, and Victor Mendez's Chevrolet Silverado appeared in the rearview mirror. "Victor is back." Sarah Mendez hurriedly pushed the door and got out of the car to greet him. What a good relationship between brother and sister. Locke curled his lips, feeling a little jealous for some reason. He also pushed the door and got out of the car, and saw Victor Mendez and Ryder each taking 2 gun boxes from the back seat of the Chevrolet Silverado. He took a glance and immediately recognized them: a Mossberg Maverick 500 shotgun, a Mossberg 930 semi-automatic shotgun, a Remington M870 shotgun, and an AR-15 series semi-automatic rifle, all of which were home defense weapons. Mossberg shotgun series. Sarah Mendez was holding a Glock G17 box with excitement, and shouted, "Victor, when are we going to practice shooting?" Locke suddenly realized that she was excited to meet him because of this gun. Victor Mendez was much more polite this time. After greeting him, he asked, "How is it? Is there any problem with the car?" "Very good, I am very satisfied." Locke frowned slightly, glanced at the guns in their hands, and felt like they were going to fight. He asked, "What happened?" Chapter 73. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Victor Mendez's eyes flashed, and he glanced at his sister who couldn't wait to take out the G17, and smiled. "Sarah is about to become an adult, so I gave her a gun. It happened that the gun store was having a promotion, so I just bought other guns casually." Locke rolled his eyes in his heart. "With your IQ, you dare to lie in front of me." However, he also knew that Victor didn't want his sister to know too much, so he didn't continue to ask. Locke immediately said to Sarah Mendez, who was playing with the G17, "You should choose a G19 for her. The G17 is a bit big for her. The size of the G19 is smaller than the G17, and it is more suitable for women. He is not used to using the G19 now." Victor complained, "The G19 is $100 more expensive than the G17, Locke was stunned. Is $100 a lot? But then he thought of the purchasing power of $100 in the United States, and he was relieved. However, the large G17 only costs more than $500, while the smaller G19 costs more than $600. There is really no way to argue. Locke really didn't expect Sarah Mendez to like guns, but in order to find out what happened, he interrupted her interest and asked, "Sarah, how much is the balance?" Sarah Mendez thought about it and was about to answer, but Locke said, "Have you added the cost of the back seat?" Sarah was startled and shook her head. "No, it hasn't been installed yet, right?" Locke said, "Add it together, it has to be installed anyway." Sarah frowned and calculated, and exhaled with a bitter face, "Sorry, I still have to go to the office to calculate." She handed the gun in her hand to Victor and ran to the second floor with pinting steps. Locke's mouth curled up. He knew that this poor student could not figure it out with his brain alone, turned his head to look at Victor next to him, and asked, "What happened?" Victor still wanted to pretend nothing happened. Ryder was moving the bullets on the Chevrolet, and said, "Hey, he is a cop, with your IQ, you can't fool him." "Shut up, you nigger with a lower IQ than me." Victor raised his middle finger to read unhappily, and then replied with a sinister face, "Martin, that bastard, was released and threatened to retaliate against us. As long as this idiot dares to come, I will make his ass bloom." A bald head with tattoos on his face immediately flashed in Locke's mind, frowning and saying, "There is flour in their car, how could they be released so quickly?" "How should I know?" Victor spitted vulgarly, "I have long said that they are in collusion with the police. Cops are all the same kind of stuff, calling the police is useless." I didn't say you." Locke's expression was gloomy, since he joined the LAPD, and he also has a sense of honor for this team, so he hates the presence of a borer in the team, he said. what else, tell me. Victor was stunned, how do you know? At this time, Reed came over with an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle, making a shooting gesture, just like a gorilla finding a toy. He turned his head and laughed, I told you that you can't fool him. Shut up. Victor was so angry that he kicked, but Reed avoided it and twisted his butt in a slutty way, as slutty as he could be. Only then did Locke believe that the two men were really only 19 years old, but when he saw Reed's gesture of holding the gun, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. This guy doesn't know how to use a rifle at all, Victor also said. It's nothing, it's just that after Martin came out, he said everywhere that I joined the cop, and then there was a rumor that Mario canceled the protection of me and Sarah. He looked at Locke suspiciously and asked curiously, how do you know that I am hiding something? Locke was stunned. After all, he had been in the gray world and was very clear about some rules and taboos in the underground world. Although the underground world is disordered and has no rules, it does have some rules and taboos. For example, it is taboo to have close contact with the police, and you must not be an informant for the police. The former will be rejected by the entire circle, and the latter may lie directly in the gutter. Also, you can't easily call the police when you fight. So, his intervention in the dispute between Victor and Martin last time did bring a bad influence to Victor Mendez to some extent. Locke sighed, trying to suppress the distracting thoughts in his mind, and explained, there is a subject in criminal investigation called microexpression analysis, which can analyze your inner thoughts by judging facial expressions, Victor Mendez said in a lost voice, so powerful, then I can't lie to you. Locke was a little speechless, he patted Victor's shoulder and said seriously, don't worry, I will give you this matter you have to explain, I won't let you face it alone. Victor Mendez hurriedly shook his head and said, no need, our business has nothing to do with you, please let us solve it in our own way. Locke frowned and said, your way is to let Sarah take a gun and shoot at the gangsters with you. Of course not, Victor Mendez said seriously, I bought her a gun to give her the ability to protect herself. After all, we live in such an environment. However, anyone who wants to hurt her must step over my body. I promised Edmund. Locke felt that Victor Mendez's brain circuit was a little abnormal. With just two rookies like you, how could you beat a gangster like Martin? At this time, he had to admit that Mario Pierce's protection was indeed a talisman for the Mendez brothers and sisters. Without the protection of this Latin American drug lord, Martin would no longer have any scruples about them. When Locke was about to ask what the gang Martin belonged to was called, Sarah ran over with a smile on her face, I figured it out, the balance is $12,450. Okay, Locke nodded, and turned back to the F-150, pretending to open the storage box on the passenger seat to take something. Locke got out of the car soon, holding a large stack of money in his hand, at least $20,000, he handed the money to Sarah, the extra is a tip, thank you for your service. Victor and Reed looked at each other, as if asking each other, is there so much money in the car? Sarah Mendez looked at the money in front of her, but did not take it. Instead, she stared at Locke hesitantly. Locke frowned, and said impatiently, why, do you think the tip is too little? Then make up for it next time. There is only this much cash in the car. Victor was also a little hesitant at first. After hearing what Locke said, he remembered the heroic behavior of the rich second generation who had seen him spend money in the bar. He hurriedly took the money and stuffed it into Sarah's hand, exclaiming, so this is how you rich people tip. Locke gave the money and ignored the Mendez siblings. He walked to Reed and said, you have never used a rifle before, I will teach you. Chapter 74. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Mendez repair shop is located in a remote area and surrounded by a mountain of abandoned cars. It is a good place to practice shooting, since there is no better solution for the time being. Let's improve their combat capabilities first. After Locke fired a few shots with a pistol and a rifle, he instantly conquered Victor and Reed, turning them into good students who were humble and pleasing to the eye. Sarah Mendez's eyes were full of stars, and her admiration for Locke went a step further. Both the pistol and the rifle were at the L3 master level, and he was a perfect sharpshooter, not to mention shooting fixed targets, which was simply child's play. Then Locke stayed for an hour, teaching Victor and Reed how to use rifles and shotguns respectively. and also taught Sarah how to shoot a pistol. After explaining the basic shooting posture and precautions of the rifle, Locke demonstrated it several times and said, "You two have good talents, but you still need to practice more and develop a sense of the gun, so that you won't be in a hurry in an encounter." After that, he glanced at Sarah Mendez, whose cheeks were flushed next to him, and shook his head. "This girl is really too stupid. I just stood behind her and taught her step by step, but she was getting more and more crooked." Seeing that the three were very excited about the shooting, Locke didn't let them send him off. He waved and said hello, then got in the car and left in a hurry. After Reed emptied the magazine, he turned his head and said to Victor, who was loading the Remington M870, "This kid seemed to be taking advantage of Sarah just now, and Sarah didn't resist." Victor's eyes twitched, his face was gloomy, and he fired a shot. He pulled the front handguard back and ejected a shell. "If he dares to play with Sarah, I will shoot him." Reed changed a magazine and said frustratedly, "But we can't beat him." Beside him, after the redness of Sarah Mendez's ears slowly dissipated, the bullets she fired were getting closer and closer to the target. The whole person was immersed in another adrenaline rush besides racing. Soon after leaving the Mendez repair shop, Locke called David with a stern look. He didn't expect that his last move would implicate the Mendez brothers and sisters and put them in danger. David started to scold as soon as he answered the phone. "Where have you been? Gary just called me to ask if you were going or not." He was about to close the shop. Locke made an evasive move and replied, "I'm on the way, but something happened and delayed me." David asked tactfully, "What's the matter?" Locke said, "Do you remember the last time I was attacked while repairing a car? In the end, it was the West Canyon Police Department that handled this case. When he was teaching the gun just now, he easily got Martin's background information. This guy is from a gang called the Smith family in Fullerton City. It is active on the outskirts of Los Angeles and is a very small gang organization. The construction company that wants to occupy the land of the Mendez repair shop is from Fullerton City. The relationship between the two is clear at a glance." He asked, "Do you know anyone to say hello to?" David hesitated for a moment and replied, "I want to ask, I don't know anyone in Fullerton." "Okay, thank you." Thinking of asking David for help, Locke guiltily told him about the phone call from Catherine Murphy. Locke thought David would warn him to stay away from Catherine as before, but he didn't expect him to be silent this time. "David, are you okay?" David said in a low voice, "Catherine has always felt that her mother's soul has not left, and has been living with us at home." Locke was stunned for a moment, and then suddenly realized. No wonder Catherine wants to see ghosts. No wonder David said that Catherine couldn't accept other women appearing at home. After ending the call with David, Locke hesitated for a while, and finally made a call. "Hello, Chief Tom, I'm Locke Lee. We met at Mendez Repair Shop last time." Tom Bolton obviously remembered Locke and asked directly, "Are you here for the last case?" 5 minutes later, Locke thanked Tom Bolton and hung up the phone. According to Tom Bolton's explanation, in the last case, one of Martin's brothers took all the blame, including contraband, so the others were allowed to be released on bail. As for Victor Mendez's suspicion that someone in the West Canyon Police Department was colluding with the owner of the construction company, Locke would naturally not be stupid enough to ask about it. In addition to wanting to know why Martin and his team came out, he also wanted to know if there were any violations in the process of his coming out. Now it seems that everything is legal and compliant. However, Locke had just experienced a legal and compliant violation himself, and he knew whether other police stations had such a shameless operation. Locke looked gloomy, and the simplest and most direct way was to kill the one who wanted to occupy the repair shop, the owner of the construction company on this land. However, this thought only flashed through his mind. He had already realized how difficult it was to kill a person alone without leaving any trouble. There were too many coincidences in the last incident in Awadilla, and it was for the sake of his family, so the risk was worth it. Sarah Mendez was not worth the risk. After picking up the Remington M700P from Bearded Gary, Locke immediately put the gun into the tail box of the Raptor after completing all the formalities. After fixing it, it fit very well. This gun comes with an M3 telescopic scope and a Harris S-type detachable bipod. He directly returned the bipod to Gary and exchanged it for 2 boxes of 7.62 by 51 mm bullets. Bearded Gary stood aside and watched, and couldn't help but say, "Boy, I think it's more cool to put an M1 Garand in this position. Locke shook his fingers. Do you know how precious my fingers are? Gary understood immediately and laughed and scolded. No wonder David said you are a complete bastard. It seems that you have to use your fingers because that thing doesn't work. Locke gave a middle finger back, not wanting to continue this topic with the old man, waved to Gary, got in the car and left. When he was about to get home, Locke felt inexplicably nervous because Li Bo had returned from New York. Although he had met once during the last administrative leave, he played the PTSD, post-traumatic stress response, state at that time and didn't communicate much with Li Bo. But during this period, the relationship between father and son has improved a lot, and Locke didn't know how to deal with Li Bo. But obviously, his worries were unnecessary. Hi, Todd. Welcome home. Hi, Locke, your mother told me everything about you during this period. I am proud of you. After a hug, there was no need to say a lot, but it was obvious that Li Bo didn't know how to get along with his eldest son, whose relationship had improved. He was even more reserved than Locke. After all, they had been estranged for more than 10 years. Fortunately, Jet and Hannah were there, otherwise the father and son might have remained silent. After Locke chatted with Li Bo for a few words, he got up and went to the kitchen. Marianne, do you need my help? Marianne flatly refused. You do have a talent for cooking, but I don't want my kitchen to become Ukraine again. Cleaning the kitchen takes more time than cooking. She looked at Locke meaningfully. How is it? Locke naturally knew what Marianne was asking, and he shrugged. The atmosphere is very harmonious, but Todd looks more nervous than me. Marianne smiled. When you were born, he was also very nervous. He was very nervous at every stage of your growth. He has always been very nervous about you. After all, you are the first one, and we have no experience. It was very plain, but Locke was moved and nodded. I know, Marianne said again, it is a great progress that your relationship can be improved. Locke, know you have made some efforts for me and your father during this period. Thank you. Marianne, we are a family. Locke didn't want to immerse himself in this emotion, so he changed the subject. Marianne, we have to go back to Gran apartment after dinner. Marianne's face sank instantly. Why? Locke knew she had misunderstood and thought he didn't want to see his dad, so he explained, I can't date Jennifer this weekend, so. Marianne's face suddenly turned from gloomy to bright, and she smiled. I see, kid, be careful. Locke breathed a sigh of relief and joked, you and Todd should also be careful. I don't want to have another brother or sister. Marianne's smile froze instantly, pointed outside, and said angrily, now, immediately, get out of my kitchen. Chapter 75. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After dinner, Locke said hello to Li Bo and Marianne and hurried out. It was a rare family reunion, so the time for eating and chatting was seriously overdue, which might cause him to be late. The weekend date was suddenly cancelled, and he was late for the evening date. It was so fucking bad. Locke himself was a little embarrassed. He stepped on the gas as soon as he got in the car, ready to become the Los Angeles car god, but he didn't want the phone to ring. It was David calling. Hi, David. Boy, I asked a friend in the gang and narcotics division of the Detective Bureau for you, but Fullerton is under the jurisdiction of the Orange County Police Department, so it is difficult for us to interfere there. He will ask the Orange County Police Department to help submit a list of the Smith family. Otherwise, it is difficult for us to do anything, unless they commit crimes in Los Angeles. I understand. Thanks, David. Please help express my gratitude to your friends. After hanging up the phone, Locke raised his eyebrows. He should have thought of it earlier. Fullerton is under the jurisdiction of Orange County and is not under the jurisdiction of LAPD at all. The Greater Los Angeles area, Los Angeles County, and Los Angeles City are not the same concept. The Greater Los Angeles area includes 5 counties, including Los Angeles County and Orange County, as well as San Bernardino County, Riverside County, and Ventura County. Los Angeles County has 88 cities under its jurisdiction, with Los Angeles being the largest city and a jurisdiction area of 10,500 square kilometers. Orange County has 34 cities, with Fullerton being the third largest city and a jurisdiction area of 2,067 square kilometers. From an administrative perspective, the Los Angeles Police Department is lower in administrative level than the Orange County Police Department, Because the Orange County Police Department is connected to the LASD, Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. Los Angeles County, however, there is no superior-subordinate relationship between police departments in the United States, but a level relationship, but the objects of service are different. It seems that the relationship of the LAPD cannot handle this matter, and can only find a way out by itself. Locke soon had a plan in his mind, and was ready to take the initiative, planning to have a good talk with Victor after returning from Lubeck. After pressing this button, Locke began to drive attentively, and soon he was immersed in the fun of driving. There were few cars on the road at night, so the speed increased immediately, when he noticed that there was a policeman in the rearview mirror turning on the police lights to signal him to pull over. He realized that he was speeding and hurriedly pulled over. Fortunately, it was not much. After parking the car, Locke turned off the engine immediately, then pressed the window, took out the police badge, held it in his hand, put both hands on the steering wheel, and waited for the police to come forward to ask. This felt very novel. It was the first time he was stopped by LAPD, however. After the novelty, he smiled bitterly again. He might be late for even longer. In the rearview mirror, two LAPD got out of the car one after another. The one walking in front was a black policeman. He reached out and touched the trunk of the F-150. After confirming that the car was indeed stopped, he slowly walked to the driver's seat. Seeing Locke honestly showing his hands, the black policeman said, "Sir, you just exceeded the speed limit. I need to check your vehicle information and insurance policy now." "That okay?" Locke slowly raised his hands, shook the police badge in his hand, and then turned sideways to take out the insurance policy information from the storage box on the co-pilot seat. When the black policeman saw the badge in Locke's hand, he relaxed instantly. He took the information and checked it, and said with a smile, "Hey, man, you just exceeded the speed limit by 30%. Wow, Rock Lee, man, I've heard of you, cool." He turned his head and shouted to the white policeman on the side, "Keith, come and see who we caught." The white policeman Keith hurried over to look into the car and found that it was not a star. Then he took the information handed over by the black policeman. "Rock Lee, is it the Rock Lee from the Wilshire Police Department?" Locke nodded and said, "Yes." "I'm sorry," the black policeman asked, "can you tell me why you exceeded the speed limit?" Locke replied, "I was late to pick up my girlfriend." The black policeman smiled and said, "Speeding for love, the great reason is that I might also speed." He returned the information to Locke. "All the information is fine, man. Since this is your first time speeding, I will only give you a warning this time. I hope you won't do it again next time. I promise. Thank you." Locke stretched his hand out of the window, bumped fists with the two LAPDs, and asked casually, "What should I call you?" The black policeman replied, "Frank." The white policeman solemnly introduced, "Keith." Locke thanked again, "Thank you, Frank." "Keith." Frank smiled and said, "I've heard about what you did, cool." Keith also said, "Have a nice date, man." "Thanks, guys." Locke waved to them, started the car, and slowly left, thinking in his heart, this is the benefit of being organized. Otherwise, the ticket would definitely not be able to escape, and he might have to go to 6 hours of traffic school, similar to relearning traffic rules in China. He then thought that this modification had not been filed yet. Fortunately, Frank found that it was his own people, so he did not check carefully, otherwise he might face heavy fines and car seizure. 20 minutes later, Locke finally arrived at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Because he had already called, he accurately found the bright and beautiful Jennifer Gray at the gate. Locke pressed the window, drove the car slowly over, and asked, "Hi, ma'am, are you a doctor?" Jennifer Gray tilted her head and glanced at Locke, and asked cooperatively, "Yes, how can I help you?" Locke said sincerely, "I left my heart in the room in order to pick up a lady. I need a doctor to help me put it back. Can you help me?" Jennifer Gray shrugged and nodded, "Okay, then take me to your room quickly." After Jennifer Gray got in the car, the two smiled at each other. She looked at the interior of the Raptor and nodded, "I like this car more, it has more space, and I also like pickup trucks. I have ordered a Cybertruck, Tesla pickup truck." That cool. Locke has realized that there is a reason why Tesla is so popular. Elon Musk may not be selling cars, he apologized. I'm sorry to be late. It's okay, thank you for leaving me tonight. Jennifer Grey stretched her body forward with both hands, causing her voice to change a little. Locke shrugged, and suddenly felt that it was meaningless to be so polite to each other in their relationship. Back to Gran apartment, Jennifer Grey hung on Locke like a sling bear as soon as she entered the room. Becoming a sexually hungry patient, Locke had to hold her to the door and window and draw the curtains. After a passionate kiss, Jennifer Grey couldn't wait to take off Locke's shirt. When unbuttoning her pants, Locke thought of her having a day of surgery today, so he asked, "Are you hungry? Do you want me to cook you some midnight snacks?" Jennifer Grey said with accelerated breathing, "I've eaten chocolate and energy bars," but then she looked up and asked, "What do you have to eat?" Locke replied, "Dumplings, Chinese dumplings." "He has frozen dumplings imported from China in his refrigerator." Jennifer Grey thought for a moment, then immediately regained her dignity and nodded, "Okay, I can hold on for a while." So Locke walked into the kitchen with his upper body naked. 10 minutes later, when he came out with a plate of dumplings, he found Jennifer Grey lying naked on the sofa, already asleep. Just as Locke was hesitating whether to wake her up, Jennifer Grey opened her eyes, got up, took the dumplings from Locke, and brought them to the dining table next to her. She didn't sit on the chair, but lay on the dining table, her back pressed down, forming a curve, her buttocks raised, as if she was doing yoga. After eating a few bites, Jennifer Grey suddenly turned her head to look at Locke, and urged dissatisfiedly, "Hi, honey, what are you waiting for?" Locke was speechless. Damn it, he thought the woman wanted to bend down to relax. After all, she had been standing for a whole day doing surgery. He had killed thousands of people, but this woman taught him a lesson. What a shame. So he took off his clothes and walked over. "Oh, yes, come on, I like it." Chapter 76. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next morning, Locke woke up early. He didn't set an alarm, but woke up naturally, because he knew that if he was late this morning, Marion would be really angry, so his biological clock woke up automatically. Looking at Jennifer Grey, who was still sleeping soundly next to him, Locke didn't wake her up. How arrogant this woman was at the beginning, how weak she became later. After all, she had been in surgery for a day and had consumed too much physical energy. In the fourth round, she actually fell asleep. Locke was shocked. This was the first time he encountered such a situation. He was angry and funny, but he was still in high spirits, so he had to continue. That feeling was a bit perverted. Fortunately, I don't know if it was too stimulating, but it was released quickly. Locke now has a better understanding of his physique. With his current physique, if he returns to the football team, he can definitely beat those teammates who are as strong as chimpanzees and get his quarterback back. Maybe his single attribute is still not as good as theirs, but he wins because his 4 attributes are balanced enough. The standard human attribute peak in the system is 20, but Locke knows that under the constraints of various innate factors and acquired environment, it is impossible for anyone to reach such a value under normal circumstances. The 4 attributes of normal and healthy ordinary people are usually below 8. If one of the attributes of strength, speed, and endurance exceeds 10, they can become top athletes, and if the mental attribute exceeds 10, they will be what people call academic masters or geniuses, even the best athletes or geniuses in the human race. The highest single attribute may only reach a level of 12 to 15, which can be proud of all mankind. Locke roughly estimated that for someone like Jennifer Grey, at full health, he should be able to fight 3. There is no such saying as there is no plowed land, only tired cows. This saying does not exist here. After washing up, Locke packed a few clothes casually, left a note for Jennifer Grey, and went out. When he returned to Beverly Hills, Marion, Lebo, Jeter, Hannah and others were all up and eating breakfast. Marion gave him an appreciative look, praising him for not being late, and asked him to wash his hands and go to the table to eat breakfast. "Morning, Marion." "Morning, Todd." As for Jet and Hannah, neither of them raised their heads, so Locke ignored them as usual. He would not spoil these 2 guys. Lebo glanced at Jet and Hannah with dissatisfaction, frowned and scolded, "How did I educate you? I always told you that the elders should be in order, brothers should be friendly and younger brothers should be respectful. This is our traditional virtue in China." Jet looked up and said coolly, "Morning, Hannah also put down the knife and fork in her hand and smiled sweetly. "Morning, Locke." "Morning," Locke responded with a smile and looked at Li Bo in surprise. He would not scold Jet and Hannah before, but thinking of Locke Lee's bastard look, he was relieved. Yes, how can a brother ask his younger brothers and sisters to respect him if he doesn't act like a brother? After breakfast, the Locke family prepared to set off. This time, he drove 2 cars, one of which was his F-150 Raptor and the other was his Mercedes-Benz G55. Marion had told him about this long ago, so Locke filled up the G55 and sent it back yesterday afternoon. When getting in the car, Jet and Hannah took Marion's car, while Li Bo got in Locke's car, which made him a little uncomfortable. Li Bo couldn't help yawning after getting in the car, and the father and son looked at each other in a bit of embarrassment. After all, they both knew what the other had done last night, but one was full of energy and the other was exhausted. In a slightly awkward atmosphere, Locke took the lead in starting the car and led the way, and soon Marion followed in the G55. Locke is just north of Los Angeles, and the transportation is very convenient. The entire journey is the California Highway, Golden State FWY, passing through San Fernando, Santa Clarita, and Castaic, and it takes about 2 hours to drive. Jester Locke, Locke's grandfather, moved from Texas to California in the 1960s. Because he was used to farm life, he did not settle in Los Angeles, but chose Locke, because Locke is a well-known agricultural city in California, with a large number of livestock and ranches. After years of development, Jester Locke owns a 500-hectare livestock farm, a 180-hectare grape plantation, and a 70-hectare leisure farm in Locke. The total area held by the Locke family has reached 750 hectares, 1,855 acres, becoming one of the largest farmers in Locke. Although the farm area in California cannot be compared with agricultural states such as Montana, Nevada, and Illinois, it is also a well-known agricultural state in the United States, and its output value is far higher than these states. So don't look at Marion and Li Bo. Both did well in Los Angeles and became rich, but they were far inferior to Jester Locke in terms of wealth and status. Jester Locke was not only a member of the California Livestock Association, but also a member of the NRA, National Rifle Association of America, and a billionaire with assets of over $100 million. The car sped along the California highway and soon passed San Fernando. After driving for more than half an hour, the car was still very quiet, and the father and son didn't know what to talk about. More than 10 years of estrangement cannot be dissolved by a few phone calls, and telephone communication is completely different from face-to-face communication. Finally, it was Li Bo who broke the silence. He said, "Locke, I have reflected a lot during this period, on your mother, on you, and on Jet and Hannah. Well, I want to apologize to you. I shouldn't wait for you to bow to me. I should take the initiative to communicate with you and understand your thoughts. Should I start with an apology?" After Li Bo finished speaking, Locke also said tactfully, "Todd, I'm sorry, I was too immature and ignorant before, and made you and Mum worry." Li Bo said with relief, "No, we ignored your psychological problems during adolescence and neglected to communicate with you." Locke felt a little sad. Even if he communicated, it would not help. Locke Lee's sudden rebellion was not a simple adolescent rebellion, but because of the discrimination he suffered due to his mixed-race Chinese identity, which led to the rejection of Chinese ancestry and the disagreement with his identity, which caused a gap with his father. If they really communicated and knew the truth, how would Li Bo, who has a deep Chinese complex, feel? The topic was opened, and there were more topics to talk about. Li Bo was very interested in some of Locke's recent experiences. Although Marion had recounted it once, it was different from what the person said after all, so one asked and one answered, and the atmosphere became more and more harmonious. As he was talking, Li Bo hesitated for a moment and asked, "Locke, what do you think of Jet going back to China to study in college?" Locke was stunned for a moment and replied, "Todd, why don't you organize a family trip to China first? It's just right to visit the university you want Jet to go to, so that Marion and Jet's understanding of China will not just stay on TV and newspapers." Li Bo's eyes lit up and clapped his hands and said, "Yes, why didn't I think of it?" Locke couldn't help rolling his eyes. He finally knew who Locke Lee inherited his IQ from. No, Li Bo is a top student who was admitted to Yale. 2 hours later, Locke's car drove off the highway and turned into a beautiful road. After driving for another 10 minutes, he saw a large wooden archway in the distance, Rock Farm. After driving closer, you can recognize the name of the Locke family from a very old wooden sign. The view in front of you suddenly opened up, and towering white stables appeared on the rolling grassland, majestic and magnificent. A sense of the grandeur of the West came to you. Chapter 77. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Entering the farm and passing through the stables, all they saw were the busy cowboys. Locke had to roll down the window to respond to the endless greetings, and Marion did the same thing behind him. There were even familiar cowboys riding horses and following their car for a while, smelling the smell of grass and horse manure in the air. It was as if they had traveled through time and space, from the civilized world to the wilderness of the West. At this time, a sturdy cowboy wearing a cowboy hat rode a majestic brown horse and caught up with them. He was also holding a handsome black horse in his hand. Locke saw this scene in the rearview mirror, stopped the car in a hurry, turned his head and said to LeBeau, "Todd, you drive next, you should have rested enough." In LeBeau's embarrassed and annoyed expression, Locke pushed the door down and greeted the galloping cowboys, clapping and shouting, "Zhang Fei, Zhang Fei, the black horse's name is Zhang Fei, this is naturally given by LeBeau, who said that Black Zhang Fei is the most powerful general in China." The cowboy reined in the horse accurately in front of Locke, with the horse's hooves raised high. He let go of the black horse, and the black horse immediately ran towards Locke. Locke held the rope and gently stroked the horse's mane. The black horse also put its nose close to him and sniffed him. It remembered very unhappily. Locke climbed onto the horse, and the black horse excitedly carried him around in circles. The cowboy next to him put his cowboy hat on Locke's head and smiled. "Not bad, after becoming a policeman, you look tougher than before." Locke continued to stroke the black horse's neck and asked, "Henry, didn't Rand come back?" This rough and sturdy cowboy is Locke's uncle Henry Locke. Now the farm is managed by him and his wife Lucy Locke. Rand Locke is their eldest son and Locke's cousin. The two have a close relationship and have been running behind Locke since childhood. Unlike Locke, Rand is a complete academic master. He is currently studying computer science at Stanford University and is determined to become the world's most powerful hacker. They also have a daughter, Alice Locke, who also has an excellent IQ. She went to college at the age of 17 and is now studying at Pepperdine University in California. Henry Locke said indifferently, "He seems to have gone to France to participate in some competition." Locke then remembered that Rand Locke had mentioned to him that he represented Stanford University in France to participate in a computer programming competition, in the Mercedes-Benz G55. Jet and Hannah looked at Locke on horseback with envy. Although they had learned to ride horses and had no shortage of horses to ride on the farm, they did not have their own horses. In the entire third generation, only Locke has his own horse. It's not that they can't afford it. The cost of raising horses on the farm is very low, but it's because it's too wasteful to raise a horse that doesn't work and doesn't ride it often, which is not in line with the pragmatic habits of Texans. At Marion's reminder, the two of them greeted their uncle Henry Locke. At this time, LeBeau also switched to the driver's seat, and the two cars continued on the road. Locke and Henry rode their horses and ran together. Soon the car drove up a grassy slope, which overlooked the entire farm. There stood a large stone villa, like a castle. Grandpa Jester Locke, Aunt Lucy Locke, and Uncle Glenn Locke's family had been waiting outside. Although Jester Locke had gray hair, he was still energetic and his back was straight. He wore a cowboy hat and a cowboy-style outfit, a plaid shirt and jeans, boots on his feet and a pipe in his hand. He stood on the steps and looked at everyone with a smile. Aunt Lucy Locke was dressed neatly because she lived on a farm. She opened the door of the G55 and welcomed Hannah down. "Wow, our Hannah has grown beautiful again." Marion got out of the car and asked casually, "Isn't Alice back?" Lucy Locke complained, "I asked her if she wanted to come back with your car to spend the weekend. She said she had an appointment with her classmates to go camping. I thought she could see her often because she was studying in Los Angeles. I didn't expect that she still didn't want to go home even though she was so close." Marion smiled and said, "It's always like this." When Locke was studying at CSU, California State University, he didn't like to go home on weekends. Locke felt uneasy when he heard this. Obviously, Alice Locke didn't want to see him. Ever since Locke Lee and Rand read out the confession letter written by a male classmate to Alice in public in front of the whole family, the cousins have been enemies. After Locke tied up the horse, he went to greet his uncle Glenn Locke and his family. Like Locke, their family also has 5 members. Glenn Locke and Sophia Locke have 3 children, namely, 10-year-old cousin Olivia Locke, 8-year-old cousin Evelyn Locke, and 6-year-old cousin Virgil Locke. They were born yesterday. They returned to the farm that night. Glenn Locke worked at the IRS, Internal Revenue Service, as a senior executive, and Sophia Locke worked as a supervisor at a consulting company. They were both elites. The novel was taken from the Rawlers website. Close where you're reading it and support us on our website for more free novels. Locke suddenly discovered a secret. Marion and Glenn both graduated from prestigious schools and received elite education, but they were unwilling to inherit Jester's farm and went to Los Angeles to develop on their own. On the contrary, it was the eldest uncle Henry Locke who went to community college and finally stayed to inherit the farm. Compared with Locke and Jet, the cool Hannah was undoubtedly the most popular. She was surrounded by stars and was pestered by the 3 children of her younger uncle to play with her. After Glenn Locke greeted Marion and Lebo, he found Locke specifically, hugged him, and said, "Locke, let's talk later." Locke's heart jumped and he was a little panicked. Did he have a problem with his tax? He nodded and said yes, then walked towards the head of the Locke family who was standing on the steps and looking at them with a smile on his face. "Hi, Jester, how have you been lately?" Jester Locke came down and hugged Locke tightly. "Locke, good job, I know you can get over it, so I didn't go to see you. Tell me about your experiences during this period later." Locke knew that Jester was talking about the last time he shot and killed 2 drug dealers, which caused psychological trauma and administrative leave for half a month. Locke smiled and said, "My shooting skills have improved a lot recently, and your L-88 may not be able to be saved." Jester Locke looked unconvinced, but still said, "I wish someone could drive it away." Locke, as the first of the 3rd generation of the Locke family, was born with thousands of loves. Henry Locke and Glenn Locke both loved him very much, especially Jester Locke, who even used the surname Locke as his name. When Locke was a child, because Marion and Lebo were busy fighting for their careers, he was raised by Jester for a large part of his time. The reason why he dared to fight recklessly in high school and was not afraid of the lessons of Lebo and Marion was not unrelated to Jester Locke standing behind him. Jester thought it was not a bad thing for a boy to be a bit brave. He thought Locke was the most cowboy-like person in the 3rd generation of the Locke family, and he perfectly inherited the fearless and brave bloodline of the Locke family. At this time, the others also came over after greeting each other. Marion, Lebo, Jeter, and Hannah greeted Jester one after another. Marion smiled and said, "Dad, you may not be able to keep your L-88 this time." Jester Locke has an antique muscle car, a 1969 Chevrolet Corvette L-88. There were only 216 cars in the United States equipped with L-88 engines at that time. Now the number of this car in the entire United States is less than 20. The current market price is about $450,000, and it is priceless. Marion's 3 siblings wanted to pass, but he refused them all. Jester has always used this car as a bounty. As long as someone in the family beats him in shooting, he can drive the car away. Unfortunately, Jester Locke's shooting skills have always been unique in the Locke family, and he beats Marion and her brother and sister, not to mention Lebo, Locke, Rand, and Jet. Jester looked at Locke in surprise and smiled. "Even your mother said so. It seems that your shooting skills have improved a lot." Glenn Locke looked at Locke and nodded. Locke has become a celebrity in the LAPD recently, and even the IRS, Internal Revenue Service, has heard rumors about him. Henry Locke clapped his hands and shouted, "Great, finally someone can compete with Jester." Chapter 78. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The lunch at noon was quite rich, with barbecue, smoked fish, steak, stewed pig's trotters, sausage, cheese-baked lobster, vegetable salad, fruit salad. Most of the dishes came from the Locke family's own ecological farm, which is open to the public and provides various leisure activities such as picking strawberries, fostering cattle and sheep, and pumpkin picking competitions. With an annual turnover of more than $3 million, even the red wine served with the meal was made from grapes from their own vineyard, but the taste was very ordinary. so it was not the case that things made by themselves were good. In fact, the grapes produced by the Locke family's vineyard are not suitable for making wine. The vineyard mainly grows red globe, which is sold all over the world. The revenue of the vineyard has even exceeded that of the ranch. On the long dining table, Jester Locke sat in the middle, Locke and Marion Lebeau sat on his right, and his two uncles and aunts sat opposite them. The Locke family does not talk about table manners, and chatting while eating is their table manners. First, his father Lebeau talked about the situation on Wall Street and analyzed the recent economic situation, such as the increasing inflation and the possibility of the Federal Reserve raising interest rates. Henry talked about the situation of the farm this year, such as coyotes breeding too fast and illegal immigrants invading the farm. Lucy added some revenue data of the farm in the first half of the year. The farm is a family property, and everyone has dividends. Sophia mentioned that she has recently contacted some Chinese customers, including those who import fruits. The next time the customer comes to Los Angeles, she plans to bring the customer to visit the family's vineyard to see if she can expand exports to the Chinese market. Neither Locke nor Glenn talked much. Both of them are disciplined forces. There is not much to talk about, and it is not suitable to talk about it at the dinner table. Although his mother did not say anything, she has always controlled the rhythm of the dinner table. Her dominance is a habit formed from childhood to adulthood. After talking about business, they started chatting, talking about recent interesting things, commenting on the food on the table, and complaining about the policies of the Democratic Party. Because Jester is a member of the NRA, National Rifle Association of the United States, the Locke family are all Republican supporters, and complaining about the Democratic Party is a daily routine. Jester Locke was old and had a limited appetite. So he finished early, drank red wine, chatted with everyone from time to time, and had a smile on his face. Henry Locke looked at Locke, who had been listening to everyone's chat, and asked Marion and Lebeau, "What's the situation? Why is Locke so quiet today? Did you scold him again?" Marion said unhappily, "Do you think he will be like you and never grow up in his life?" Marion has absolute blood suppression on her two younger brothers. Even though Henry Locke looks like a bandit, he can only admit defeat in front of Marion. He looked embarrassed and retorted, "How can I not grow up? I have 2 children, and Rand can get married." In the Locke family, Henry has the best relationship with Locke except Jester Locke, because the two had very similar personalities before. Both of them were very reckless and hot-tempered. Even though he had his own son Rand later, he still loved Locke very much. He felt that Rand was too weak and not like a cowboy. Marion shook her red wine glass and said proudly, "You can ask Locke to cook a dish tonight. He has recently learned a Chinese dish, which is very good." Jester looked at Locke in disbelief. "Jesus, is this still my grandson?" Lucy said expectantly, "Locke, what ingredients do you need? Tell me later." Although it was agreed long ago, Locke was still a little embarrassed and replied, "Pork ribs are enough, they need to be marinated first." Marion did not stop her baby showing behavior, and then said, "He not only knows how to cook, but also decided to say goodbye to his previous chaotic life. He has a stable girlfriend who is a Harvard medical student. A top student of the college, working at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center." Everyone exclaimed again. Sophia Locke put down her knife and fork and asked, "What department does Locke's girlfriend work in?" Marion glanced at Locke and replied, "It seems to be surgery." Locke also nodded and said, "Yes, surgery." Sophia Locke's expression tightened, and said, "Locke, ask your girlfriend if she knows Professor Harold Caldwell of cardiac surgery. I have been trying to contact him recently and want to invite him to dinner." She explained, "I have a Chinese client who has made an appointment for Professor Harold Caldwell's heart surgery, but it has been scheduled for 3 years. According to the patient's condition, I am afraid he can't wait that long." Locke didn't even know who this Professor Harold Caldwell was. In addition to physical communication, he and Jennifer Glenn rarely talked about work. It was typical that they only talked about the body and not the heart. However, this matter was not a big problem. He replied, "I'll ask her later." Marianne looked relaxed and revealed another piece of information: it shouldn't be a big problem. Jennifer's mother is Lauren Anderson, the director of Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. The atmosphere at the table suddenly became serious. Everyone realized the weight of the director of Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. This is definitely a big shot. American families also pay attention to the improvement of class. Although the Locke family also belongs to the wealthy class, they are at a relatively low level. Sophia Locke said seriously, "Marianne, I think you should pay attention to Locke's relationship." Marianne nodded and replied, "I pay attention to it. I have given him my G55 for dating." Locke couldn't help but roll his eyes. "You just want to change the car yourself." He really wanted to say that he and Jennifer were just friends with benefits. "Forget it, I can't ruin the atmosphere." Because he was underage and couldn't drink, Jet was assigned to sit at the end of the table with Hannah and Olivia. He also took on a very important task, taking care of his younger sister and brother. Looking at Locke, who became the focus of the table next to him, he felt a little depressed. Obviously, he was better. Hannah ate a vegetable salad and whispered, "You are so childish." Jet turned his head and looked over with a bad face. Hannah looked like she had seen through it a long time ago. When he was a jerk, everyone liked him, let alone now. After dinner, Lee-Bo and Marion were called into the study by Jester. Seeing that they both looked nervous, Locke guessed that it was related to the separation of the two some time ago. Henry Locke came over and put his arm around Locke's shoulders. "Come on, let me see if your shooting skills have improved." "Henry, give Locke to me, I have something to talk to him about." Henry glanced at his brother, saw that he was serious, shrugged and said, "Okay, business is more important." Locke followed Glenn Locke out of the villa in confusion. Glenn walked to a water trough. There was no one around. The breeze blew, mixed with the smell of fresh cow dung. He leaned against the fence, turned his head and asked Locke, "Do you know why I heard about you at the IRS?" Locke shook his head, and Glenn said, "The IRS is currently checking the accounts of the LAPD. Locke was shocked. This is the notorious IRS, an existence that Americans cannot get rid of from birth to death. Glenn was a little dissatisfied with Locke's surprise. Marion even said that this boy has matured. I know Marion is very familiar with Captain Davis, but you will reveal this information to her later. Seeing Locke staring at him in astonishment, he became more unhappy. You don't really think that the IRS is an iron bucket? The senior executives of the LAPD probably know everything they should know. They should also want to check how many black police officers there are through the IRS. As for the level of police inspectors, no one should know yet. Locke was naturally pretending. He nodded hurriedly and said, "I know, Glenn." "Ask again, how many black police officers are there in our Wilshire Police Department?" Glenn frowned and said dissatisfiedly, "Hey, kid, I asked you to tip off so that you can buy a good reputation with your boss. Don't push your luck. Besides, I'm not in charge of the Wilshire Police Department." Locke smiled awkwardly, and then said, "Glenn, you must investigate the West Canyon Police Department. I suspect that some police officers are colluding with interest groups." Glenn frowned. "What's going on? Tell me." Chapter 79. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the morning, the whole ranch came alive. Locke was pulled up by Henry to go riding early in the morning. After riding for an hour, he was sweating and his thighs were rubbed. He Zhangfei was so tired that he stuck out his tongue to breathe because he was too heavy. While taking a shower, Locke suddenly found a problem. He knew how to ride a horse, but this skill did not appear in the panel. Although his riding skills were average, he had been riding for more than 10 years. It was impossible that he had not even entered the door. Standing under the shower, Locke closed his eyes and enjoyed the impact of the water flow. He was puzzled, but he did not figure out this problem, but figured out another problem. He figured out why he subconsciously made up a man and a woman when he made up a story last time. With the help of the detection card, he found 5 corpses buried in the back garden of Villa F10-09. Because he was anxious to find Anna and Nathan at the time, he did not carefully identify the genders of the 5 corpses. However, he was also a forensic L3. As long as he had the impression of the 5 corpses in his mind, the forensic knowledge would automatically summarize and analyze. Therefore, when he made up the story, he subconsciously said a man and a woman. It was not a random statement, but the information given by the brain after analysis and summary. Again, there is no coincidence or accident. Some things cannot be explained because you have not found the reason and the logical connection behind them. Then why is there no writing skill? Writing. Locke was suddenly stunned. The scene of Jennifer lying on the dining table with her hips raised the night before appeared in his mind. Her hips were also rising and falling. Could it be that the system counted this skill into mating? Forget it, don't think about it, it's not an important matter anyway. Also, I called Anna Davis last night, but she didn't seem too surprised. I think she should have known this information from other channels. Considering Harry Thomas's influence in the LAPD, it is normal for Anna to know this information in advance. Although Anna already knew this information, she still expressed her gratitude to Locke. I don't know if there will be any worms in the Wilshire Police Department during this investigation. This news is a pleasant surprise for Locke. If the IRS's investigation of the LAPD can find the worm in the West Canyon Police Department, the crisis of Mendez Repair Shop will be reduced by at least half, and his previous response plan can eliminate the factor of the West Canyon Police Department. After breakfast, the farm became busy. Today, Henry is going to eliminate the overbreeding coyotes on the farm. Recently, there are more and more coyotes on the farm, which has affected normal grazing, so some must be cleaned up. This is what the farm must do every once in a while. The Locke family will dispatch 4 people, namely Jester, Henry, Glenn, and Locke, and most of the cowboys on the farm will also be dispatched. Marion, Lebo, and Sophia will stay at home. They also have their own work today. They will deal with the accumulated financial problems, legal problems, and relevant government documents and notices on the farm. Usually, these tasks and non-urgent matters will be accumulated together and handled like this. After all, they all get dividends, so there is no need to hire people to do these things. Lucy will continue to be responsible for the overall logistics of the entire farm. For example, she will deliver lunch to the cowboys at noon. Jet was also assigned an important task. He was very happy at first, but when he learned that his task was to look after Olivia, Evelyn and Virgil together with Hannah, his face immediately became bitter. But there was no way. The adults were busy, and he, a semi-adult, had to take his own responsibilities. Locke saw his expression and almost laughed out loud. What a proud little brother, because his thighs were sore from riding a horse in the morning, and He Zhangfei was a little overwhelmed. Locke didn't plan to ride a horse, but wanted to drive over, but he needed to confirm whether it was possible to drive over. Henry was holding a DJI remote control in his hand, searching for the distribution area of coyotes. Seeing Locke coming over, he handed the remote control over. This thing is very interesting. Now we don't need to fly a helicopter, which saves a lot of money, but the flight time is still a bit short. Locke also has a DJI, so he knows how to operate it. He stared at the display on the remote control and saw more than a dozen coyotes moving around. He asked, Henry, can the raptor pass that place? Henry asked in surprise, do you want to drive there? Locke couldn't say that his thigh was rubbed raw, for fear of being laughed at, so he said, I have a refrigerator in my car, I want to bring some beer over. Henry grinned and said, really? Show me, then I'll drive later. You don't know the way. After a while, the trunk refrigerator of the F-150 was filled with ice cubes and beer. The beer was Corona, Henry's favorite. Henry was very satisfied and immediately decided to modify his Dodge Ram 1500 in the same way. Dodge Ram 1500. Jester also praised, your generation knows how to enjoy it. If we had this at that time, herding would be more comfortable. He patted Locke on the shoulder. Let's go. What kind of gun do you want to use? I'll take you to the gun store to choose. As a member of the NRA, National Rifle Association of the United States, Jester Locke's gun store is a real gun store, with at least thousands of various types of guns collected, which can be called an arsenal. Locke shook his head, walked to the other side of the trunk, opened the gun cabinet, and showed the Remington M700 inside. I brought a gun. Henry saw the gun cabinet and exclaimed in surprise, wow, cool. This is good, I want to install one too. Locke was speechless for a while, and looked at his uncle Glenn, who had the same expression next to him, and said with a smile, Henry, these things have been popular for many years, don't you go online? Henry scratched his head, I rarely go online. Locke couldn't help but feel a little sympathetic. The sadness of the poor students, the information is out of touch with the times, especially living in a ranch far away from the city. Bayou. Locke held the Remington M700 and pulled the trigger. A coyote 500 meters away suddenly fell to the ground. Several coyotes next to him sensed the danger and fled in all directions. Remington M700 that he naturally wouldn't give them a chance. He pulled the bolt to eject the bullet and pulled the trigger. It was done in one go. The movements were as smooth as flowing water. It was completely invisible that he used a sniper rifle for the first time today. With the rifle L3 master level, it was a piece of cake to hit a target within 1,000 meters. Every shot he made was a headshot. Bayou, bayou, bayou. 0.5 more shots, and 5 running coyotes fell to the ground. At this distance, for a target as big as a coyote, whether it was still or moving, it didn't make much difference to him. This feeling was incomparable. At this moment, Locke felt like the god of death who harvested coyotes. He loaded the bullets calmly, and couldn't help complaining in his heart that the Remington M700P could only load 6 bullets at a time, while his grandfather, Jester's old-fashioned M1 Garand, could load 8 bullets. M1 Garand, Henry Locke next to him had already been numb. He had put away his Winchester M70 sniper rifle early, drinking beer, holding a telescope, and showing off Locke's achievements to the other side from time to time using the walkie-talkie. Winchester M70 sniper rifle. Glenn. Locke has captured 6 more, a total of 49. We no longer have any wolves here. Where is Jester? At first, it was a normal coyote extermination operation, and all cowboys participated in the hunt, but when Henry discovered Locke's amazing shooting skills, he immediately stopped the large-scale hunt and changed the operation to a shooting duel between Locke and Jester. Glenn. Locke's voice came from the intercom. Still 23, 1 shot just missed. Wait, Jester wants to talk. Jester's excited voice came from the intercom immediately. Okay, the game is over. Locke 1, L88 is yours. Come quickly and let me see our sharpshooter. Chapter 80. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Not far away, cowboys were busy, some were digging pits, and some were riding horses to collect the bodies of coyotes. Dozens of coyote bodies were piled together, like a small hill, which was very spectacular. The air was filled with an unpleasant stench, which was the stench of the coyotes themselves mixed with brain matter and blood. Gasoline lime was also prepared nearby. The coyote bodies would not be buried directly. Before burying them, they would be burned once and then sprinkled with lime to prevent the breeding of viruses. Locke saw this picture and couldn't help but speculate. I wonder if there is a place dedicated to handling corpses somewhere on Locke's farm. The cowboys who were working would look at Locke from time to time, with curiosity and awe. Some cowboys who were not familiar with him asked the old cowboy. Just now, after Locke came over to join, he demonstrated his shooting skills in public again. At a distance of 400 meters, he shot 3 coyotes in the head with 3 shots. Not only did he shock the cowboys, but also shocked Jester and Glenn. The numbers reported on the intercom were far less shocking than what you saw with your own eyes. Since then, the position of the first sharpshooter in the Locke family has officially changed. In the past, about 50 to 60 coyotes could be killed in one eradication operation. And every time Jester was the absolute protagonist. With his exquisite shooting skills, the coyotes he hunted accounted for 1/4 of the total. Today, Locke and Jester killed 75 together, plus the cowboys shot at the beginning, far more than before. Locke alone accounted for 2/3. If Jester hadn't stopped them, the few coyote cubs in the distance would not have escaped Locke's bullets. There are also restrictions on the eradication of coyotes on the farm. You can't kill all the coyotes to avoid destroying the ecology of the farm. If the coyotes are killed, the farm will be flooded with rabbits next. It usually takes a whole day to work, but today it was done in half a day, which made Henry very happy. He kept shouting that there is another sharpshooter in our family, which embarrassed Locke. While the cowboys were working, 4 people from 3 generations of the Locke family leaned against the raptor, drinking beer and chatting, enjoying the privileges of the farmers. The sky was blue, dotted with white clouds, and the breeze was gentle. If it weren't for the pile of coyote corpses and the fishy smell that drifted with the wind, this would definitely be an extremely enjoyable scene. Jester. Locke wore a cowboy hat and held a pipe in his mouth. He was not unhappy at all about losing to Locke. Instead, he was very happy. Next time, let Locke do it alone to eliminate the coyotes. I can finally retire. While drinking and chatting, Jester asked Locke about his experience during this period, and Locke told him everything he could say. Hearing that Locke had experienced so many things during this period, he killed 8 people in less than a month. Jester and Henry were shocked. Only Glenn remained calm, because he had known this information for a long time. Henry put his arm around Locke's shoulders. Cool. Our little Locke has finally grown up and become a real cowboy. Jester stared at Locke in a daze. I've heard rumors that some gunmen suddenly become better at shooting after killing people. It seems to be true. After getting rid of the fear of killing in their hearts, people and guns are more compatible. He reached out and touched Locke's head, with a look of relief. Good, the Locke family finally has a successor. He didn't take Locke's murder to heart at all. Which Texas cowboy doesn't have a few lives in his hands? He was a little unhappy when he heard that Locke killed 2 drug dealers and became autistic due to psychological trauma, and wondered why Locke became weak. Jester's words made Henry and Glenn look a little unnatural, but they didn't dare to talk back because of Jester's power. In Jester's view, his eldest son Henry might be a qualified cowboy, but he couldn't be a farmer. He was too straight and not smart enough. Although the youngest son Glenn is very smart, he is too cunning and not brave enough. No matter how smart a fox is, it cannot lead a group of unruly cowboys. The eldest daughter Marion is a suitable successor, but unfortunately she is a woman and is not interested in the farm. Moreover, she has a strong personality and has her own ideas. The reason why there have been no problems in the farm handed over to Henry in recent years is that he is still there, and there are Lucy and others to help. Therefore, Locke has always been the 3rd-generation successor that Jester wants to cultivate. Although Locke was not very smart before, he had a fierceness in his bones, which could intimidate cowboys. Now that he heard that Locke had seen blood and had killed people, Jester was even more satisfied and felt that the successor he had been cultivating had finally become successful. He also saw the look in the cowboy's eyes just now, and knew that Locke's shooting skills shocked the cowboys. Making cowboys in awe is a necessary temperament for a farmer. Jester did not object to Locke being an LAPD. He thought that more experience and accumulation would be a good thing for Locke. When the time is right, he can come back to take over the farm. After listening to Locke's recent experience in person, Glenn realized that he needed to adjust the degree of importance he attached to Locke and could no longer treat him as a child. As long as Locke maintains his current momentum, it should be no problem for him to be a police inspector in the LAPD in the future. He raised the Corona in his hand and touched it with Locke. If there is any progress at the West Canyon branch, I will tell you. Thank you. Locke immediately realized the change in his uncle and said, Glenn, as a party with interests, I think you can check the Cavill Construction Company. Glenn was startled and suddenly felt that he still underestimated Locke. This shameless level is possible for the chief police inspector. He nodded immediately and said, the IRS will pay attention to any report from citizens. Leisure time always passes quickly, and 3 days have passed in a blink of an eye. After returning from the coyote extermination yesterday, the farm held a grand bonfire party because the mission was completed ahead of schedule and there was plenty of time. The cowboys sang and danced, played and sang by themselves, and performed their talents. The members of the Locke family also appeared one after another, and Locke also went on stage to sing an extremely unpopular My Stupid Heart in a tone-deaf manner, which caused cheers from the whole audience. Many cowboys took the initiative to come and drink with Locke. Jester introduced them to Locke one by one, causing Locke to be supported by Lebo and Henry before he walked back to the room. Early this morning, everyone drove to the leisure farm 10 kilometers away. The ladies took their children to the orchard, and the men rode horses to catch lures in the stream. Locke had no talent for fishing at all. Among all people, he was the only one in the Air Force. Even Jet caught 2, which made the boy very proud. At noon, everyone had a picnic on the spot, eating grilled fish, vegetable salad and fruit. In a blink of an eye, it was time to return to Los Angeles. Frankly speaking, Locke really likes this kind of unrestrained and leisurely life. If possible, he really wants to stay on the farm, which is the life he longed for in his previous life. Afternoon, Rock Farm. Rock, it's yours. In front of everyone, Jester handed the key of Chevrolet Corvette L88 to Locke, which made Marion and her brother and sister envious. Even Lebo was a little jealous, not to mention Jet, who was full of envy. this muscle supercar produced in 1969 has a mysterious L88 engine, hidden headlights, classic shark body, side gills, tilted front end, and both hard and soft lines. Compared with the current sports cars, the shape is not inferior at all, but more aggressive. This is not a car, it is an industrial work of art. Marion stared at the key in Locke's hand and smiled. Hi, Locke. No, Locke refused without hesitation and threw the key of the F-150 Raptor to Lebo. Todd, help me drive the car back. Then he gave Jester a hug and ran towards the L-88 excitedly, and soon the low roar of the L-88 was heard. Locke stretched his hand out of the window, waved a few times, and then stepped on the gas, and the Corvette L-88 slowly disappeared from everyone's sight. He went back to Los Angeles first. Marion retracted her envious eyes, turned to Lebo next to her and said, take the car keys away at night. Lebo was embarrassed, but he also supported Marion's approach. Even the top rich people would not use this level of car for transportation. This type of car has a collection value far greater than pretending, and it can be passed down from generation to generation. After the initial excitement, after driving for a while, Locke couldn't help but smile bitterly. All the shortcomings of the vehicle appeared in his mind one by one, including power, suspension, wind resistance, chassis, steering wheel power, seat comfort. No matter how glorious it was when it was born, it was just an old car more than 40 years ago. He immediately concluded that this was not a car suitable for modern transportation. It seemed that he had to change his own car as soon as possible. Thinking of this, Locke looked around and saw that there was no highway traffic police, so he called Sarah Mendez. This car didn't even have Bluetooth. Hi, Sarah, how were the past 3 days? Very good, we have been practicing shooting. Tell Victor, I want to talk to him.